who has health has hope, and he who has hope has everything. Human health is a real wealth that nobody values until he is struck by disease. Better health is the basis of well-being and happiness. Health is defined as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. Since the beginning of human life and throughout ages, the world has suffered from different diseases and infections that threaten people's lives and disturb their living. Science has succeeded in controlling some diseases, but others still represent major obstacles.
Hepatitis is one of the critical diseases that has spread widely in the recent decades and affected people's lives significantly. It disturbs patients' daily life activities and makes them suffer, not only physically but also emotionally and socially, losing hope in having a normal life. Hepatitis means an inflammation of the liver. Thus, we first need to know how the liver functions in the body in order to see how far the disease affects the body functions. According to the Canadian Liver Foundation, human liver is a complex chemical factory that processes virtually everything you eat, drink, breathe in, or rub out on your skin. It's responsible for some of the most significant functions of the body, such as cleaning the blood by destroying all the poisonous substances that get into it, supplying the body with fuel and all the essential proteins, and regulating the amount of body cholesterol, hormones, and vitamins. It also has an effective role in digestion by producing a digestive fluid called bile. Scientists have discovered 5 unique hepatitis viruses, identified by the letters A, B, C, D, and E. They differ in their influence and their way of transmission. Hepatitis A and E are caused by contaminated food or water. Hepatitis B, C, and D are related to blood and blood products. Hepatitis C was first discovered in 1980 when scientists found a new hepatitis virus which can infect the cells of the liver, causing inflammation and damage, affecting its performance and functions. Unlike hepatitis A and B, hepatitis C virus is an RNA virus that has the ability to mutate. The thing that makes it harder for the immune system to locate and destroy it.
As you know that, and we heard that we have in the world there is so far around 7 genotypes, and the HCV is what's called RNA viruses, and the RNA viruses actually to replicate they use what's called polymerase, RNA polymerase, and this enzyme actually they prone for error, so they make mistakes. It's not like the one that we use in our cells for the DNA replication when we do DNA polymerase, which is very elegant and very efficient enzymes. For the virus, they use RNA polymerase, which can introduce error, and this is produce a lot of variation for the virus that is produced. Very difficult for the immune system to identify a specific target because they continuously change, so they always deceive the immune system, and they can always actually very difficult to be cleared out from the body. This is why until now we don't have a vaccine for the HCV, although we can have a vaccine for the hepatitis B virus because it's DNA virus. But for this particular virus, it's very difficult. They mutated a lot and they changed their code a lot, and very difficult for the immune system to find a specific structure that they can attack all the time.
Hepatitis C is categorized into 2 stages. The first stage, the acute stage, is the stage which lasts for 6 months after the infection, in which 25% of the infected people can be cured naturally by the help of their immune system. If this does not happen and the patient does not take the treatment, he goes through the second stage, which is known as the chronic stage, causing various symptoms that may develop into fibrosis, cirrhosis, or liver cancer. It is estimated that 150 million people worldwide are chronically infected with hepatitis C, and about 700,000 people die each year from hepatitis C-related liver diseases.
According to the World Health Organization, antiviral medicines can treat 90% of hepatitis C infected people, but the real problem is that most patients get diagnosed too late because of the absence of the symptoms. The virus symptoms vary depending on the stage of infection. During the acute stage, only 1/3 of the patients experience some symptoms like high temperature, tiredness, loss of appetite, abdomen pains, and sometimes jaundice, which is the yellowing of skin and the whites of the eyes. When the chronic stage starts, symptoms become much harder. The patient feels tired all the time. He may suffer from joint and muscle aches. In addition, the patient may suffer from memory and concentration problems, in addition to mood swings. Other symptoms can also appear, such as depression, indigestion, and itchy skin. The treatment at the chronic stage is necessary. Otherwise, the infection can eventually cause cirrhosis, resulting in vomiting blood, dark stools, and building up of fluids in the legs or the abdomen. Hepatitis C is a blood-borne infection that's transmitted through any contact with infected blood, but the ability of any blood products or any source of blood, even indirectly, to carry this virus makes it more transmissible than most of the other blood-borne viruses. Blood transfusion was a significant cause of transmitting the virus before 1990. After a few years, the problem was solved by implementing effective blood screening techniques of the virus and better methods for blood transfusion. Now, 30 to 40% of all identified cases of hepatitis C are infected by injection tools when sharing drug needles or being accidentally stuck by a needle used by an infected person. Also, the sharing of medical equipment and personal tools like toothbrushes, straight razors, and needles may be very harmful. The body piercing practices like tattooing have been clearly identified as modes of transmission. Also, a mother with hepatitis C may transmit it to her embryo. There are two different blood tests to detect hepatitis C: the hepatitis C antibody test and the PCR detection test. In the first 6 months of infection, the body produces antibodies to fight the virus, and in 25% of the cases, it can clear the virus naturally before it turns into a chronic infection. The antibody test just detects the antibodies of the virus, not the virus itself. If the result is positive, then the patient has been exposed to the virus, whether he has the virus or not. So he needs to do the second test, the PCR detection test. And if the results are positive, then this means that the virus is detected and the person needs to be treated.
The earlier the disease is detected means that the viral titer will be lower and the duration of treatment will be less, which is again giving better prognosis or better chances for the patient to get 100% treatment. Also, early detection has to do with the chances of reduced risk of transfer of disease from the patient to his direct contact, say siblings, family members, or co-workers, because this is a disease that is transferred from, among many things, by blood.
It's very important, the early detection, very important, because what it does, that when somebody in the family know that he or she is infected, they will try to use the protective methods so they don't share their stuff with the householder, and they stop, and actually this will break the cycle of infecting more people. So this is very important that you use the early detection, and you encourage a lot of people to go and try to and use the standard test. And usually what happened that the virus started to be acute infection, which started and then turned to be chronic infection, and this can last for like up to 20 years unseen and hidden. And all of a sudden the patient will know that is or she is infected with the virus because it already developed cirrhosis or cancer in the later stages. So it is very important that to actually be up to date with the detection method and do a lot of screening. And I've seen a lot of ads about that they try to screen villages now, try to make the out of institution HCV free. They start to do screening, and we are in the right path today.
The treatment of hepatitis C may depend on some factors: the status of the liver, the quantity of the virus in the body and its genotype, and the general health status of the patients. Most people do not get the needed treatment because the infection has almost no clear symptoms in the early stages. But treating the acute infection prevents the chronic infection and its risks. Until a few years ago, only 2 drugs were approved by the FDA for the treatment of hepatitis C: a weekly injection of pegylated interferon and a daily dose of ribavirin. Those all drugs were associated with significant side effects like vomiting, diarrhea, muscle aches, depression, anemia, weight and hair loss, and weakness of the immune system on the long term. In 2010, a new drug called sofosbuvir became available as a part of combination therapy. It acts directly on the virus, not on the immune system. This drug, which has a brand name called Sovaldi, became the most common used drug for genotypes 1, 2, 3, and 4. It became also the most common drug for hepatitis C in Egypt. In 2013, a new study was done to evaluate the new treatment for HCV/HIV co-infection, which was a combination of sofosbuvir and a newer drug called ledipasvir. It was effective and had no serious side effects. So it became FDA approved and was marketed for by Gilead Sciences.
To get the drug, you have to first to understand how the virus is working, so you can intervene in different steps. So you know how the virus enters the cell, then you try to find a drug that will prevent the virus from entering the cell from the first place. Or you understand how the virus is replicating inside the cell, then you try to target different steps inside the cell to block the virus from replicating or preventing the virus from exit the cell. So you have first to understand how this is why some people, virologists, try to understand how the virus is working so they can find a cure. At the very beginning, the treatment, there was interferon, and the interferon is not very specific to the virus, but they are actually used as antivirus mechanism. And then about what's called ribavirin still is not very specific to the virus, and initially it was meant to be a treatment for HIV that caused AIDS, but they found out they can do a lot of very good job with the HCV treatment until they started to use what's called DAA, or the direct associated antivirus. And this is DAA is actually it's a treatment that they actually target the virus specifically. And maybe you will hear now that the high percentage of the people that get cured from the HCV comparing with in the past, because in the past they try to help the body to fight the virus. Now they actually specifically target some of the genes in of the virus, try to get rid of the virus, so it is more specific, more accurate, and more efficient. And Sovaldi, that is now used, and I think the government also approved a recent one where you can take a tablet for just 1 day, every day, one tablet for maybe 3 months, and the result is amazing, maybe reach up to 97%.
Living with hepatitis C doesn't just take a toll on the patient's liver, but also it can impact his mind. Therefore, he may encounter different psychological issues like depression, anxiety, and sleep disturbances. In severe cases, he may suffer from psychosis. Thus, the treatment should include medication, therapy, attending support groups, or a combination of these options. As many patients of hepatitis C may feel tired or suffer from depression, there are some home treatment tips to help patients deal with the physical and emotional impact of the infection. It is recommended for patients to do this work when they feel tired, not to exhaust themselves. However, when they can exercise, aerobic exercises, for example, can alleviate the patient to a good extent. A major advice is to eat regular nutritious meals, even if the patient has no appetite to eat. It is important to care about food. Also, it is recommended to eat less salty food and less protein. As hepatitis C harms the liver, the patient should avoid alcohol and harmful drugs, and he should ask the doctor before taking any medicine.
The greatest gift you can give your family and the world is a healthy you. And prevention is always better than cure. So everyone should follow healthy habits and be cautious of the sources of infection. Eventually, having hepatitis C is not the end of the world. It could be a great start of a new success story which may inspire millions of people against all the diseases all over the world.